sit on top of people. What did I tell you about that? Oliver, come on. Come sit next to me. Don't be sitting on top of people. Come on. Where are you, silly goose? Oliver. Hello. So I'm back to reading Redwall to you. And Oliver's here to read with us. Aren't you, buddy? But, let's see. Yeah, Matthias wanted to try and rescue the portrait of Martin the Warrior. But let's see now. At least I think that's what he wanted to do. I believe that's what he wanted to do, is save the portrait or the tapestry. But anyway, page 6 or chapter 16, page 81. At the camp of Cluny the Scourge, the rat army was girding itself up for war. Weapons were being sharpened upon churchyard headstones. Under the critical eye of Red Tooth, a band of rodents was gnawing off a length of planking from a rickety lich gate. Fence at the rear of the church. Others collected stones to provide ammunition for slings, while some coiled ropes about their bodies. Inside the church, Cluny sat up in the choir loft, the image of barbaric authority. He held the scourging tail in one claw, while gripped in the other was his war standard, topped by the ferret skull, with the addition of the tattered tapestry square depicting Martin the Warrior. He gazed proudly at it as his armorer dressed him for war. At Cluny's feet were the Vol family. They were bound. He flicked his tail at them and sneered. "Ha, look at me, you spineless little creatures. Did you ever see such a leader of fighting animals as Cluny the Scourge? Soon I will have every creature that moves down on its bended knees to me." Mr. Abraham Vol glared defiantly at his captor. "You filthy great bilge rat." "Why, I'll silence," roared Cluny. "Hold your tongue, Vol, or I will deal with you and your family here and now before I set out to conquer your precious abbey. Do you see my new battle flag? That is Martin the Warrior. Yes, the same one who is supposed to protect that doddering old abbot and his witless mob of mice. Now Martin is mine. It is more fitting that he travels at the head of real warriors. He will lead us to victory." Cluny ranted and raved on, the light of madness in his eye. "Death and desolation shall be the reward of those who dare stand against Cluny. The only ones I will spare are those I might choose to serve me." Mrs. Vol struggled upright, but was forced back down by Scumnose and Fingburn. Chattering with rage, she shouted at Cluny, "You'll never bend Redwall to your evil will. Good will prevail. You'll see, Cluny, we are tied up, but our minds are free." Crack! Cluny lashed out with his long tail, sending the Vol family flat upon the floor. Mr. Abram Vol struggled to shield his wife and son with his body, as the tail flailed out a second time. "A touching little speech, Vol, but you wrong me. I don't want to capture the spirit of Redwall. I mean to kill it. Take these whining creatures out of my sight. Lock them in the hut out at the back. Leave them to imagine what their fate will be when I return." Colin Vol shrieked in terror. His mother and father struggled bravely as they were dragged off. Redtooth marched in and saluted Clooney. "The horde is ready to march, chief." A rat armorer set the war helmet firmly upon Clooney's head. He snapped the visor down and kicked aside the rat who had fixed the poison barb on his tail. Striding out into the churchyard, Clooney climbed up on the wrecked gatepost. His fierce eye gazed out across the mighty army. Black rats, brown rats, gray rats, piebald rats, skulking measles, furtive stoats, and sinuous ferrets, all gathered around their weapons, glistening and dripping with the rain. As Clooney exhorted them, they roared back their frenzied replies. "Where does Clooney's army go? Redwall, Redwall. What is the law of Clooney? Kill, kill, kill. Who will lead you to victory? Clooney the Scourge. Clooney, Clooney, Clooney the Scourge." Springing down among his army, the warlord waved the banner high overhead. With a mighty shout, the horde of Clooney the Scourge marched out upon the road to Redwall Abbey. Chapter 17. Rhaegar was hopelessly lost. Separated from Clooney, he could not think for himself. Scuttling off down the road in the wrong direction, he had kept on going in a state of funk. Frightened by the sound of a bird chirping suddenly, he rushed blindly into Mossflower Wood and pressed on, deeper and deeper into this strange new territory. It was only with the arrival of pale dawn that he stopped, slumping down under some bushes. Exhausted, soaking wet, and dispirited, he curled up into a wretched damp ball and slept. Sometime about mid-morning, Rhaegar, was awakened by the sound of footsteps. As Matthias tramped past, he lay low, silently congratulating himself. What a find! A little mouse. He would take him prisoner and bring him back alive to Clooney. That way he could gain some prestige. Clooney might even forget that he panicked and deserted at the Abbey. Matthias risked a swift glance over his shoulder. There was a rat clumsily trying to stalk him, a fat, awkward-looking rodent, but nevertheless an enemy. The young mouse strode forward, his mind working coolly and without fear, confident that he could handle the situation. Breaking twigs underfoot, stumbling inept from tree to tree, Rhaegar watched the mouse and fantasized. There were 6 of them, chief. They tried surrounding me, but I fought like a devil. Then I says to myself, "Rhaegar," says I, "you'd better capture this last one and fetch him back for the chief to question. Then Clooney will say to me, 'Rhaegar, good old Rhaegar, I knew I could depend on you. Why do you suppose I took you along in the first place? Mange fur, bring food and wine for my old pal Rhaegar the Brave.' Ah, yes. Then I'll pat the chief on the back and say, 'By Satan's whiskers, you old rodent, have you never thought of retiring and letting me lead the horde? Why, with a gallant warrior like me and come.'" Thwack! A long whippy larch branch sprang forward suddenly and crashed into Rhaegar's head, poleaxing him. Matthias stepped out of hiding, rubbing his hands. It had been a strain holding the branch back for so long. Uncoiling Shadow's climbing rope, he bound Rhaegar paw and claw to a sturdy oak. The young mouse could not afford to wait around for the rat to regain his senses. There was still a deal of traveling to be done. He pressed onwards, leaving his senseless enemy bound to the tree. The rain stopped within minutes. The hot June sun burst down on Mouseflower, as if in apology for its absence. Clouds of streaming mist arose from the woodland floor, mingling with the golden shafts slanting down through the trees. The birds began singing. Each flower and blade of grass was decked out in jeweled pendantry with necklaces of sparkling raindrops. The sudden warmth flooded over Matthias, cheering him onwards. Humming a tune beneath his breath, he strode out with a will, almost breaking from the cover of the tree straight out into the flat meadowland. He checked himself just in time. Directly ahead lay a vast overgrown area which was neither pasture nor meadow. It was the common land that had once belonged within the curtilage of St. Ninian's. Matthias crouched at the edge of the woods. He could see the back of the church. There were 10 or 12 rats patrolling it some distance away. Before he dealt with that problem, there was still the common land to be crossed. Clumps of thistle and slight ground hummocks would be his only cover. The young mouse spoke his thoughts aloud. This could present a little problem. A strange voice answered him. Problem? A little problem? Well, at least it's not a fully grown adult problem. That's pretty funny. Matthias squeaked aloud with fright. Whirling about, he looked for the source of the mystery voice. There was no one about. Taking a grip of himself, he squared his shoulders and called out boldly, Come out here this instant and show yourself. The voice answered. It seemed to come from directly in front of him. Show myself, indeed. How many pairs of eyes do you want, young feller? Fine state of affairs, bless him soul. What? Matthias narrowed his eyes and looked hard. Still nothing. I warn you, come out and show yourself, he shouted irritably. I'm in no mood for playing games. As if by magic, a lanky hare popped up right beside Matthias. An odd patchworked creature. His fur was an ashen hue with blots of gray and light brown flecked white on the underbelly. He was very tall, with formidable, hefty hind legs and a comical pouched face topped off by 2 immense ears which flopped about of their own accord. With a courtly, old-fashioned manner, the hare made a leg, bowing gracefully. His voice carried a slightly affected quaver. Basil Stagg Hare at your service, sir. Expert scout, hind leg fighter, wilderness guide, and camouflage specialist. A liberator of tender young crops, carrots, lettuce, and other such strange beasts. Pray tell me whom I have the pleasure of addressing, and please state the nature of your little problem. Matthias decided the peculiar hare was either slightly mad or tipsy, but his odd-modded manner was certainly friendly. The young mouse humored him accordingly, bowing low with a paw at his waist. Good day to you, Mr. Basil Stagg Hare. My name is Matthias. I am a novice in the order of Redwall mice. My immediate problem is to cross this land to the church over yonder without being discovered by the rats who are guarding it. Basil Stagg Hare tapped one of his huge feet gently on the ground. Matthias, he laughed. What an odd name, to be sure. The young mouse laughed back as he replied, Not half as odd as your own name. Who ever heard of a hare being called Basil Stagg? The hare disappeared momentarily. He reappeared next to Matthias. Ah, well, hare's the family name, don't you know? My parents named me Basil, though the old mater wanted me to be called Columbine Agnes. Always longed for a young lass, she did. But why Stagg? Matthias inquired. Noble creatures, stags, the hare sighed. Did I ever tell you I wanted to be one? A magnificent royal stag with great coat-hanger antlers. So I went down to the jolly old river one night and christened myself Stagg. Had 2 toads and a newt as witnesses, you know. Oh, yes. Matthias was unable to hide his merriment. I, too, like him, Matthias. He's a good character so far. He sat down and chuckled. Basil started chuckling, too. He sat down beside Matthias. I think I'm going to like you, my boy, he cried. Now, what about getting you to that church? Why, there's nothing simpler, but enough time for that later, young Rip. How about telling me what brings you here? I love listening to a good yarn, you know. Oh, by the way, I hope you like fennel and oatcakes. Of course you do. You'll share lunch with me. Of course you will. Young and like yourself. In a flash, Basil had lugged a haversack from the undergrowth and was spreading a repast on the grass between them. For the next half-hour, Matthias related his story between mouthfuls of the hare's tasty luncheon. Basil listened intently, interrupting only when he required clarification on some point. Matthias finished his tale and sat back, awaiting comment. Basil's long ears flopped up and down like railway signals as he digested his food and his friend's information. Rats. I knew they'd come eventually through intelligence on the grapevine, you know. Could feel it in the old years, too. As for Redwall, I knew it well. Excellent type, Abbot Mortimer. Splendid chap. I heard that Joseph Bell tolling out the sanctuary message. He even had some cheeky old hedgehog tell me to run for it. Couldn't go, of course. Dear me, no, that'd never do. Chap deserting his post, bit of a bad show. What? I prefer me own company, you know. Present company expected, of course. Of course, Matthias agreed. He had taken enormously to the hare. Basil sprang up in a smart military fashion, and saluted. Right, first things first. Must get you across to the church, young feller me mouse. I'd say that green thingamajig you're wearing, habit, isn't it? Capital camouflage. You just try laying down anywhere in the shadows. Believe me, you'd have trouble finding yourself. Top hole cover, absolutely. Basil stopped and ruminated for a moment. His ears lay flat, stood up, then pointed in opposite directions. He continued. Now when you've liberated your bit of tapestry or whatever, make straight back across the common. I'll be waiting, never fear. Good. Well, come on, young bucko. We can't sit about here all day like two fat rabbits at a celery chew. Up and at 'em. Quick's the word and sharp's the action. Nip about a bit, young'un. Again Basil vanished, only to reappear some 3 yards out on the common. Come, Matthias. Tack on the left and wheel to the right. Bob and weave, duck and wiggle. Look, it's easy. Matthias hurried to follow, keeping in mind Basil's instructions. Surprisingly, they seemed to work perfectly, and before long the two friends had covered nearly 3/4 of the common land. Matthias could even count the whiskers on some of the rats. He covered his mouth with a paw to stifle a giggle. It's really very simple, isn't it, Basil? How am I doing? The hare popped up beside him. Capital! Bung-ho! Like a duck to water, young feller. Flop me ears if you aren't the best pupil I've ever had. By the way, is there anything I can do to help? Matthias stopped and looked serious. Yes, there is, Basil, but I feel reluctant to ask you to involve yourself in my fight. Basil's stag hair snorted. Rubbish, my fight indeed. Do you fondly imagine that I'd be sitting there munching at the old nose bag while some ugly great rodent and his band of yahoos run about conquering my countryside? Never let it be said in the mess that Basil's stag hair was backward and coming forward. Ask away, Matthias, you young curmudgeon. The hare puffed out his narrow chest and stood with paw on heart, his eyes closed and ears standing straight up. He awaited orders. The young mouse, hiding a smile at Basil's noble pose, said admiringly, Oh, Mr. Hare, you do look heroic standing like that, thank you. Basil opened one eye to look at himself. Yes, he did look rather gallant, a bit like the monarch of the glen or the stag at eve. Not that a young mouse would understand anything of that nature. Matthias expressed his wishes to the stag. Would it be possible for you to create some kind of diversion while I'm getting the tapestry? Could you keep the rats occupied, Basil? The hare twitched his ears confidently. Say no more, laddie. You've come to the right stag. Listen carefully. You cut across the flank to their left. They took a piece of planking out of the fence by the lich gate. That's where you'll slide your exit the same way. I'll be somewhere about, keeping an eye on you. Right off you go. Matthias went swiftly, still remembering to bob and weave as Basil had taught him. He made it with ease to the fence, glancing back to check on his companion. Basil went into a speedy run. He cleared the fence top at a bound and tapped the nearest rat on the back. I say, old thing, where's this later feller, Clooney or Looney, whatever you call him? Completely staggered, the rat stood slack-jawed. Basil left him and popped up beside another rat. Phoo, dear, don't you chaps ever take a bath? Listen here, you dreadful creature. Do you realize that you smell to high heaven? By the way, did your parents ever call you Pongo, or did they smell as bad as you? It took the rat sentries a moment or two to recover from their surprise. Then they let out yells of rage. Sorry. Then they let out yells of rage and tried to seize the impudent hare. It was like trying to catch smoke with their claws. Basil ran rings around them, keeping up a steady stream of insults and adding to the rat's bad temper. They shouted angrily, "Grab that big skinny rabbit, lads. Big skinny rabbit or yourself, cat's meat. I'll stick his damned guts on my spike." Temper, tut, such language, if your mother could hear you. Blast, he's as slippery as a greased pig. Some of my best friends are greased pigs, Bottlenose. Oops, missed me again, you old butterfingers, you. Matthias chuckled quietly and shook his head in admiration. He watched 12 rats falling over each other and bumping heads as they chased his friend around the common land. Every now and then Basil would pause and strike his noble stag attitude, letting the rats get to within a whisker of him. Nimbly he would kick out with his long, powerful legs and send them all sprawling in a heap. Adding insult to injury, he danced around the fallen sentries, sprinkling them with daisies until they arose, cursing him to continue the chase. Weary that there might be other rats around, Matthias climbed into the church through a broken stained glass window. He dropped down into the Lady Chapel. Apologize. Sometimes when I talk too much, I like to yawn. The young mouse wrinkled his nose in disgust. The beautiful old church was rank with the heavy odor of rats. Furniture was overturned, statuary broken, walls stained, the pages of torn hymn books lay about everywhere. Where was the fragment of tapestry? And where was Clooney with the rest of his army? Instant realization sent a leaden weight thudding into the pit of Matthias' stomach. They had gone to attack Redwall. Clooney must have the tapestry with him. Matthias felt sick at the thought. Hastily he climbed back out of the window. Halfway across to the fence he noticed a small shed. Somebody was pounding upon its locked door and calling his name aloud. Matthias quickly over here in the hut. Through a small gap in the door he could see the Vall family. Their paws were tightly bound. Colin Vall huddled piteously on some dirty sacking in a corner, while Mr. Abram Vall and his wife battered away at the door with their paws tied together. Matthias called through the crack to them, "Stop banging, stay quiet, I'll have you out of there as soon as I can break the lock." Matthias cast about for something that would force the padlock in hasp. Doubtless some rat had the key, but there was no time for that. By a stroke of luck he found an iron spike that had been thrown at Basil by one of the rats. Forcing the spike in the hoop of the lock, Matthias levered away. "It's not budging," he muttered. From the corner, Colin Vole started to weep aloud. "Oh, we'll be locked in here until Clooney gets back. I don't want to face him again. Do something, Matthias. Save me." Despite the Vole's wretched predicament, Matthias could not help showing his contempt for Colin. "Do stop whining, Colin. It doesn't help matters. And keep your voice down. There may still be rats about. Try to be brave like your mom and dad." In his frustration, Matthias swung the spike at the lock. It bounced off, lodging deep between the hasp and the woodwork. He grunted in exasperation, pulling it savagely towards himself to loosen it. Taken off balance, he went head over tail. The hasp had broken. It came away, bringing with it some twisted, rusty screws. The door swung open. Drawing his dagger, Matthias hastily cut the bindings from the paws of the vaults, issuing orders as he worked. Follow me and do as I say. Move as quickly and quietly as you can. Cautiously they slid through the broken fence and began making their way across the common. There was no sight of the rat sentries. Matthias guessed that they were off somewhere, still trying to catch the elusive hare. It was mid-afternoon. The common was peaceful and sunny. Butterflies perched on thistle flowers, and grasshoppers serenaded each other with their ceaseless cadences. Abram Ball insisted on shaking Matthias by the palm, congratulating him. Matthias, thank you with all my heart for saving my family. We thought we were doomed. The young rescuer looked grim. We're not back home yet by any means, Mr. Vaughn. Even if we do make it back to the Abbey, I dread to think what we may find. Mrs. Vaughn nodded vigorously. Aye, we saw them leave the church to march on Redwall. Clooney was leading the villains with Martin's picture tied to his banner. My, oh my, you never did see so many wild rascals in all your born days. Matthias's brow creased in a worried frown. I wish I hadn't sneaked off from the Abbey this morning. I do hope Constance has all the defenders on alert. It was only seconds later that Matthias wished he had been on the alert. The sentry rats had become tired of chasing Basil. Warily they made their way out of the woods and back to the common land. They sat on the grass behind a low hummock, taking a break together. Matthias and the Vaughn family walked straight into the middle of them. Okay. So that will be for tonight. But I'll be back to read 18 and then possibly maybe up until 21. Let's see. They're not long chapters. Well, it looks like it's book 2, The Quest. So we're not far off from there. But yeah, that's it for tonight. Alright, have a good night.